Game mastering burnout is a fear and real issue for many folks who run ongoing games. First off, don't force yourself to do it if your heart isn't in it. Writer's block kicking in? Found a tangle in your narrative thread? Step away from your notes for a while and take a walk, or go play some board games with friends. Watch a movie at your local theater, enjoy some fun space to not concentrate on your GMing duties, and return when the inspiration strikes. Players, please be respectful and understanding of your GM's fatigue. They are busting their ass every week to bring you joy, so just be as supportive as you can.
I'm so depressed I don't know what I'm doing. I have not got a clue.
Why does being a game master feel like a job now? Why does it take hours and hours out of your free time to prepare for something that is supposed to be fun? Who would even want to do this? Do I have to take a course on creative writing and become an expert in narrative structure just to run a game with my friends? That sounds exhausting, and frankly, it is. The truth is, none of the advice out there about how to avoid burnout is ever going to save you from the exhaustion and toil of prepping content for your game. And the reason for that isn't because you aren't creative enough or you aren't good enough. It's because all of that advice is based on a fundamentally flawed starting point about what role-playing games actually are and what they can do. When you run a game, you are not a writer or a storyteller or a director. You're a game master. Mediums like film or television are unlike role-playing games in that they require a planned vision. That is the entire role of the writer and director. Their job, and it is a job, is to take a fully written story and crystallize a coherent vision around it. They manage teams of people across different technical and artistic disciplines for the one explicit purpose of conveying that vision to an audience. Doing this takes a tremendous and, at times, excruciating amount of work, where every single choice absolutely matters. People like Stanley Kubrick were notorious for the level of obsession that they put into their films.
The essential thing about Kubrick is his absolute obsession with every single detail, no matter how small and how detailed it is. And it was his inability to ever say he was finished until he got precisely and exactly what he wanted.
And the fruits of this obsession are sometimes truly great. But this meticulous attention to every single detail is only possible because the medium of film requires it. A movie is an end product. It's a fully polished and completed piece of art that is then consumed by an audience watching it. This is not what a role-playing game is. The very nature of the game is antagonistic to this sort of process. A director has complete control over the construction of a movie. They have a script, actors who say their lines, a schedule to keep, and an editing bay where they cut down content to the frame to make their vision a reality.
There are certain tools you use, and those tools become part of a vocabulary. Tracking in or out, panning left and right, the use of a close-up as opposed to a medium shot. How do you use all these elements to make an emotional and psychological point to an audience? To tell the story.
But a game master doesn't have any of this. What they do have is something entirely different. They have a world that is only bound by the setting and the rules of the game. They have players who make choices in that world, and dice that decide outcomes of those choices. There is no control. There is no corralling your players into realizing your grand vision. There's only role-playing. And this lack of control is not a deficiency of the medium, because you're not here to realize a specific vision. You're here so you and your players can discover the world of the game together. But it's easy to understand why people have misconceptions about what role-playing games can offer. Cinema is the artistic language of our culture. When you watch a movie, you become immersed in what is happening on screen and live vicariously through the characters. That experience of living in the movie is what every player and every game master is chasing. But RPGs actually do something better than that. Instead of living vicariously through some dumb actor on screen saying lines written for him by someone else, you get to create a character and say whatever it is you think they would say and do whatever it is you think they would do in situations where nobody knows what's going to happen next.
Well, just so you know, I have no ideas for Sheriff Trimmel's office. We're gonna have 15 people standing around, and I don't have a fucking clue what I'm gonna do.
Well, you have the weekend too to think about it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time, a lot longer than a weekend.
And this is what makes the role of Game Master so awesome. You don't just get to play one character. You get to play the entire world. And just like your players, you don't and can't know what's going to happen next. Because not only is everyone else at the table going to make unexpected choices and say unexpected things, but you're using dice to decide the outcomes of conflicts and actions in the world. And this is important. The fact that you're using dice and mechanics to decide these outcomes of uncertain events means that you already know that you don't have control. And this is a good thing. You shouldn't look at this as a constraint or a punishment set in place to ruin your grand vision. What this means is that you also get to be surprised about what happens next. Just like your players, you have freedom. When playing the NPCs and monsters in the world, your choices actually matter in the moment too. And this frees you from having to know in advance what will happen next. If you take this outlook and choose to lean into it instead of fighting it, you'll become a better game master. And you won't be stuck with a bunch of homework between sessions. It won't feel like toil or work anymore. And the threat of burnout will just evaporate.
God, I should be working on game prep right now, but I just can't get myself to start. Plus, I know it's going to be like pulling teeth to get anything done. Why does every single part of the creative process feel impossible now? We have a session tomorrow and I'm dreading it. This game used to be fun, but lately I just feel exhausted when we play, like the session can't end soon enough. And then afterwards, I just beat myself up about every single thing.
Burnout is the result of applying the tools of literature and cinema to an incompatible medium. All of that prep and planning will have been for nothing. And if you force your predetermined outcomes on the players, you just obliterate the magic that RPGs create when played properly. By coming up with an endless series of linear plot developments, you're naturally going to feel rushed to get to the next one, for fear that A, your players will get bored, or B, that your story won't shine. You'll start worrying about things like pacing and encounter design, like you're under the gun on a movie set, and you won't be able to experience the good or fun things that you should get to as a GM. If you worry about rushing your players through your grand vision, not only will your vision not be realized, but you'll rob everyone at the table of the real magic.
Somebody arbitrarily says you gotta do it in 2 days.
No,
that fucking really pisses me off. It really does. Well, we're always up against the fucking, I'm not working this way again, ever. This is absolutely horrible. We never get any extra shots. We never get any time to experiment. We never get to, go dreamy or anything. We barely fucking make our days. I could have spent a week in the Fireman's. I love that place. And dream up all kinds of stuff. That it's sick, this kind of fucking way to do it. You don't get a chance to sink into anything. It's not a way to work.
The magic of role-playing games is the total freedom of imagination that they create. By letting go of the future that you so desperately want to create through your prep and planning, you gain the freedom and energy to be in the moment and present during the game. Your players won't ever care about the time that you spent alone taking notes, designing encounters, and writing dialogue for your villains. What they will remember is the energy and creativity you brought to the game itself on the day you play. And this does not mean that your game will be some incomprehensible, lol-so-random adventure that didn't have a story. What it means is that the story is going to be one that was created through actual choices that your characters made together. It means that you are free to play your villains and NPCs in the moment, like they were truly real people, and not just a series of pre-written dialogue options for your players to select by button press. In reality, your prep should be the same sort of prep that your players are taking. Think about what it is that your NPCs and antagonists actually want. What are their goals? How do they want to achieve them? When you sit down to play the game, have those characters pursue those goals and try to achieve them. Whether they succeed or fail depends on how your players interact with them. And by letting go of scripting out what choices they make beforehand, you'll put yourself in the same position that your players are in. You'll hang on your villains' every success and failure. Their aspirations will become your aspirations. And you'll get to have fun actually playing the bad guy, instead of writing the bad guy as some sort of abstract narrative construct. If you treat your villains as real characters in the game, they have the same limitations and the same opportunities that your players have. You can use the rules of the game to the full extent because everyone is on the same playing field at baseline. Well, let's see, your villain's movement rate wasn't fast enough to beat the players to the big set piece? Well, then your players get the magical artifact before him. Now he has to get even more creative because he's on the back foot. He doesn't just despawn or teleport to where you think he'd be most interesting. What's interesting about him is that he's just as real as the other player characters, if you let him be real. If you let go of your preconceptions about how to run a game. If you have ever experienced burnout, it is almost certainly because you've been treating the game like something that it isn't. The current popular approach to being a game master is to think of yourself as the grand storyteller. And this really isn't the case. The role of the game master is to present a real world with real people in it. It's to be the neutral arbiter in deciding the outcomes of uncertain choices. And most importantly, it's to roleplay. The distinction between the role of player and the role of GM is only in its scope. Players roleplay their characters with sincerity, and you, as game master, play the world with the same sincerity. Your relationship to the other people at the table is not that of entertainer, storyteller, director, or manager. Your role is not to guide the players to any sort of artificial or predetermined outcome. It is to sustain and give life to the integrity of the world that the players inhabit. It's to give objectivity to the illusion, so that the illusion can become real in the minds and imaginations of everyone playing the game. This is not a job. This is the best seat in the house. It's the most fun, and something you can actually look forward to instead of dreading. There is a better way to do this, and you can have so much more with so much less work. And this is one of the reasons that we wrote our own adventure module, the Shucked Oyster. We wanted to share the success that these ideas bring to our table every single week with everyone else. To that end, we didn't write a linear story for your players to plod through. We wrote a premise for a game that will take on a life of its own. And all it takes is for a GM to use this adventure is to roleplay the awesome characters we packed into it. Every single one of these surreal weirdos has their own conflicting goals and motivations, alliances and enemies, and they're just waiting for you to tangle your players up in their web of intrigue. So if this style of game mastery, of letting go, sounds interesting to you, check out the Shucked Oyster live on Kickstarter now. It's designed for use with Shadowdark and other fantasy RPGs, and it's guaranteed to dynamite your railroad and create incredible stories that you and your players never could have anticipated. Being a game master is not a job, so quit treating it like one.